Hey guys, I'm Ted, here to give you another Fast Fact, and for today's Fast Fact, we'll discuss the Whiskey Rebellion. Now, the Whiskey Rebellion was an uprising of farmers in western Pennsylvania who opposed the national government, the federal tax on whiskey. The federal government was led by men who came from a moneyed class, but not in an agriculturalist money class, not men who were small yeoman farmers, not even slave owners, or at least the men who would direct the policies weren't really hands-on slave owners. Um, the whiskey tax sought to put a tax on the distillation and the trade of whiskey, and not just backward of Pennsylvania, but throughout the United States. It had the way to sort of generate further revenue for the federal government, for the national government. Now, the government, the men in the cabinet, the men assigning the tax, they didn't really understand the yeoman farmers' economy or how their economy functioned. Their understanding was that they would be able to simply tax the grain and the whiskey, and it wouldn't be such a big deal. But to the farmers, whiskey and the exchange of whiskey, distilling whiskey, utilizing their excess grain to make whiskey, and then exchanging that grain for other goods was a very economic use of the grain. Grain doesn't keep for long. You have to use it or lose it. By distilling the whiskey, by distilling the grain into whiskey, they avoided the unnecessary loss of a viable product. Um, they utilized their grain, they transformed the grain into alcohol, and they were able to trade that alcohol within their community and outside of their community for goods that they needed. It was a very good supplement to ensure that they and their families got the things they needed to get them through the year or through a season. And barring being unable to get any sort of price or any sort of good for the whiskey, you can always just simply sit back and enjoy the whiskey that you distilled. Um, Hamilton and his group did not understand that. They saw the refusal to pay the whiskey tax. They saw the chastisement of tax officials had a direct challenge. Hamilton and his group of supporters were all aristocrats. They were all elites. They viewed the leaders of the Whiskey Rebellion through the same lens that they viewed Daniel Shays. And they saw the anarchy, that they saw the threat from below in the Whiskey Rebellion that others have felt with Shays' Rebellion, and they determined to put an end to it. So Hamilton and Washington, in full military uniform, gathered up an army and marched out into western Pennsylvania. But when they got there, they found nobody. Remember, these are farmers and small townsmen, just backwoods people. They, as soon as they heard that their actions had drawn the attention of the federal government, they melted away. They simply melted away into the countryside, and you couldn't really distinguish who was who. Hamilton really wanted to punish somebody. Hamilton wanted some sort of vengeance. He couldn't get it. He attempted to have Hugh Henry Breckenridge hung. Couldn't really have Hugh Henry Breckenridge hung. The court simply wouldn't go for it. And Hamilton and Washington were ultimately forced to simply return back home with their army, with their tails sort of tucked between their legs. Really just sort of tarnishing the reputation of Washington even further, and it made Hamilton sort of persona non grata. Hamilton was now fully vilified as a man who would attack the liberty of everybody. The failure of the Whiskey Rebellion would sort of be a leading factor or contributing factor into the rise of Madison's Democratic Republican Party. And there you guys have it, a quick fast fact on the Whiskey Rebellion. I hope you found it enlightening, maybe a little engaging. As always, I'm Ted. Stay tuned for more fast facts and for more lectures. And as always, hit like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know what you thought about the Whiskey Rebellion. Let me know what you thought about Hamilton's and Washington's reaction. If you thought they should have led troops there, please just leave a comment and like and subscribe. And as always, I'll see you guys later for another fast fact and another lecture.